Hi, buddy. So we have Joyce on the show again. We're going to talk about Linda Berens while I'm putting up my curtains. Okay, there we go. So basically, Joyce really just wants everyone to know that Linda Berens is alive. We're going to talk about her certification program. We're going to talk about the Tandem cognitive functions. So that's like FVTI, TEFI here, according to Linda Berens.
Absolutely. And so Linda is someone who created the interaction styles. So you might remember it from C.S. Joseph. He has a type grid, and he basically uses her concept without crediting her. But you'll see the interaction styles being used everywhere in the type community, but people talk about Linda as if she's dead. So it's like this third person God, almost like Carl Jung. It's like, wow, he has such a material. But I'm like, she's actually alive. You can actually train with her, right? She's not some figure who has passed away, so we are worshiping her work. You can see her in person, actually. She is a great person to learn from. She created an academy called Interstrength that offers a certification made of 4 lenses. One of them is cognitive dynamics, so it's the cognitive functions, as we all know. The other one is interaction styles. Then we have temperament theory. So Linda actually trained under David Kiersey, or the creator of the Please Understand Me 2 book. And he's an INTP, she's an INTP. And that's where some of her inspiration from her theories come from.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I would tell people about how it's like to get certified by Linda Berens. And I would highly recommend it, by the way, and just to give you what to expect going in. And also to give you a sneak peek at her 4th lens called intentional drivers, which is the types are grouped into 4 categories. And it's similar to the Socionics quadras. So by cognitive functions, you group them. And I'll explain Linda's unique take onto that. But I always see it as if 2 people are seeing the same thing independently of each other. So Linda did not know about socionics before she created this, and socionics came to it independently too. Then they must be seeing something real because they weren't influenced by each other and they're perceiving the same thing. How cool is that?
That's pretty cool, I would say.
Yeah. And so Leon, before this interview, he asked a little bit of Linda's personal life, and because she shares it publicly, I find
She's surrounded by INTP energy all the time.
she is her teacher, which is David Kiersey, or Kiersey, who created temperament theory, was an INTP, and her husband is an INTP too. And Linda likes to joke about how INTP is voted the most oblivious in relationships. So when there's 2 INTPs together, it's okay if they're oblivious. They're oblivious together.
So this
And
is a highly recommended relationship pairing.
absolutely. And so when you first go into Linda's program, you're going to go through an initial consultation with her. So you're going to talk with her one-on-one. And if she has any questions about your type, if she thinks you may be typed inaccurately, she'll, in a very nice way, suggest you to look at different type profiles. And so because she uses an informing style, she will suggest it to you rather than tell you you are a certain type. And it's also one of her ethics that you don't type people, that you give people the resources to figure out their type on their own. And so something about Linda is that she doesn't really like tests. So you will hear very strong soapbox monologues from her if you take one of her courses. And so she'll be talking about, hey, you know what? She vehemently hates tests, but she has an indicator out there that she created with a bunch of other people because they persuaded her that it's not a test, so you can participate. And it's called Personality Wizard. And so if you want to try taking her test, which includes interaction styles, I believe, you can go check it out there. The reason why she doesn't like tests is that they're a starting point or a talking point to get something to think about. But for 60 to 70% of people, it gets accurate. And then for the rest, it gets wrong if it's a good test. So at the very best, tests have a fallibility rate. And that's why, as an INTP, she recommends you look at all 4 of her lenses. But the thing is, not everyone is a super type enthusiast that wants to consume information for many years to be able to figure out their type. They want the easy fixes. We're a culture of instant gratification. So while her ethics are really commendable, it may not be practiced by millennials because you don't have much attention span within some people. So yeah, she's a really cool teacher. She also likes to preach about how you refer to things as preferences. So in her class, you'll see people talking about, oh, I have INFP preferences, or I have the get things going style. But you don't say that you are something directly because she's against labeling, because she wants you to view it more like it's your right hand or your left hand, but you are not your left hand or right hand, if that makes sense. But it does influence you. And so there's that about her. So you will get a lot of TI logical purity rants, like, this is not true in my framework. And she will teach you her ways. And it's going to be around a classroom of 10 to 30 people. And you'll be discussing type together. And I believe to complete her certification, it's like 1.5 years. And you have to do coursework. And you'll get to talk to Linda Berens herself. She's alive, guys. And so I wanted to give you guys a demo of one of her new programs. This is from a document that she's sharing publicly, so I'm allowed to show these figures. It's paper from Chris Montoya, who she created this lens with.
Joyce won't get sued.
I won't get sued. That's me saying this is trying to prevent the future oncoming lawsuits. I'm very poor. If you sue me, you won't have much to take away from me. And so
I'm still going to take every last penny, so I'll try to find a chance.
Yeah, Leon's a gold digger. He's just trying to...
INFPs are poor, so it's only fair.
Yeah, if you're going after me, you're really a penny digger, so you're really just get the bare scrapes, the little breadcrumbs. And so Linda has something she calls the tandem processes. It's basically how SI is always connected to NE and SE is always connected to NI and vice versa for the rest of the cognitive function axes. So these functions work in tandem, not in isolation. And so the perceiving functions, which is the sensing and intuitive functions, are the awareness tandem, and the judging functions are the assessment tandems because you're assessing things with them. And with these functions, you can create 4 categories. With the NTPs and the SFJs, they're known as enhancing. The NFJs and the STPs are customizing. The STJs and the NFPs are authenticating. And the SFPs and the I might have missaid this. The SFPs and the NTJs are orchestrating.
Right.
All right, and I'll explain.
So these are arranged in a similar kind of arrangement as Socionics quadrants.
Yes.
And so you find that when you look at the Socionics descriptions, it's similar to hers for the different quadrants.
It is in certain ways, and it also adds a little bit of nuance in different ways as well. For instance, the SFPs and the NTJs are known as orchestrating. So they seek what's effective about the world based on utility, and so they're good at utilization.
Yeah.
And
would you say that's the same thing for the ISFP?
If they're doing well with their TE. So
okay.
Yeah. The ISFP eventually does want to bring things into the world. So the most keep the ideas or values in my head is actually INFP because they're FI Dom and they also don't have SE too. So they're ultra non-action on their likes. But the ISFP, you'll oftentimes see them, oh, maybe they're a cosplayer, or they'll have certain things that they actually put into action in the real world with their hands-on skills.
Yeah. I like to think of them as reified INFPs. They're INFPs made more real into the world.
That's a good way of putting it.
But yeah, this is a very socionics concept. It's the gamma quadra are about like what can be done about bringing things into reality.
And if we move on to the STJ and the NFP, their drive is for ethics and what's right about the world based on values. And yeah, their filter is rightness. And so it's desire to find ethical purity,
Mm-hmm.
because you have the NE, which is looking at concepts, and the FI, which is looking at their values. So it's this theoretical purity of
Mm-hmm.
all, and wanting to instill that with the SI and TE. Yes. And so there is a desire to understand ethics on a really deep level.
Oh.
Of
Mm-hmm.
course, other types can love ethics for different reasons too.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
Yes. So I have a question. So what is the dark customizing? So I'm like the shadow you, maybe. Because
yeah,
customizing is your pattern, right? And authentic is mine. So what's dark customizing?
yeah. So this article that I'm reading it from is talking about shadow functions and how people talk about when you're an INFJ, you're shadow ENFP. And this is the lens that also helps you understand that too. So when
Mm-hmm.
a customizing type, such as an INFJ, is in their shadow functions, they are dark authenticating, which is a term for seeming adopting ENFP style behavior for a while.
Mm-hmm.
With dark authenticating, what I see it as is if you stress out an INFJ or ENFJ enough, they can look like an NFP, almost like
Mm-hmm.
focus on ethics, focus on what's right based on values, and push that onto other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so they can have the authenticating in a stressed and strong stance and wanting to. That's why you get those stereotypes of the FE users being very strong with their values and enforcing it on other people.
Right.
You could see that as an authenticating stance, with
Yeah.
the FESE looking like they care about ethics, like an authenticating type,
Okay.
but aggressive about it.
Okay. All right. So why don't we talk about yours? Like, so how do you see you in the customizing pattern?
Customizing is when I'm a coach, I can figure out how to customize my approach to work for the other person. So it's realizing how to deeply simplify things. So it's when I come up with a statement and it just completely simplifies the essence of something really precisely.
Mm-hmm.
That's deep simplification.
Hmm.
And that is what the customizing types do. They're
What's
good.
the go ahead.
Yeah, they're good at being able to change themselves to fit the context for tailoring themselves for it. Oh, my English.
Okay, so I could kind of see that as like a drive for equality. Do you want to elaborate on that a bit more?
Yeah. So it is being able to treat others in the way that they want to be treated. So seeing from their lens how they would understand things the most.
Mm.
So you can tailor it towards them. So I think Linda has tweaked these terms, and so I might not know how to reply because they might actually be different than how she actually teaches it now.
Okay.
So yeah,
Is
like
there a way that you personally you resonate with it?
yeah, the way that I resonate with it is if you look at someone like Matthew Hussey, he's an ENFJ,
Hmm.
and he shares a customizing approach where I think about his concept of unique pairings. So in a way, you can customize yourself that has a way of deeply impacting the world around you. So being
Right.
able to shift yourself for the best SE impact in the moment. So it's the
Yeah.
SEFE that is seeing concretely in the moment how to FE shift yourself, and the NI is figuring out the core concepts behind that,
Hmm.
and then being able to change to that.
Right. Right. I can see that. So like for them, so for customizing, well, I know like for ENFJs, this is perhaps like a sense of you becoming the archetype that other people need, right? So whatever archetype is needed during a certain kind of time period, like say you have like a ENFJ present, they kind of take up a certain kind of role, kind of that's perhaps meant for their times. That makes sense. Or just I think like I also live with a bunch of customizers like in the house. So there's this idea of like there's like I guess like everyone's like a team or something. Like everyone's like working together.
Yeah. And because your TI, which is your framework, is connected to a fluid function like NI,
Hmm.
as long as your framework's there, you're willing to adapt it because all the SE situations are different, but the NI core concept stays the same. Whereas you see for the authenticating type and the enhancing types, which have SI and TI or SI and FI, they're a little bit more rigid about the purity of something.
Hmm. Right.
Whereas the customizing and orchestrating, which is their TI or FI, is with NI, they're more fluid with their way of impacting the world. It's like whatever impacts the world the best, then that's fine.
Okay, so let's talk about like the other one. So we have like enhancing.
So with enhancing, there are people who are the most particular about defining something and being pedantic and being just right. So these are perhaps the biggest grammar Nazis. That might not be the best way of putting it, or pedantic about wording or pedantic about how
Hmm.
something is
Hmm.
put. It's like with a Christmas tree, for instance, if someone puts something at the top of a Christmas tree, which completely changes the roots of what Christmas is, it's like, well, you understand that when you put this instead of that on top of the Christmas tree, it's no longer true to the roots of Christmas because
Right.
of this historical fact and this.
Right, right.
So it's being super nitpicky about the details, but being precise about your understanding about something.
This is yeah, this is pretty interesting. I've mentioned about I've made some videos about SFJs and NTPs before they like it could kind of seem like they're making mountains out of molehills a lot. But there's also like they have a flip side in which for a lot of things, you know, things don't like really matter that much, but when it comes to these detailed things, it does matter.
Yeah. And these namings, they might appeal more to one side of the function group than the other. So enhancing sounds inherently more NTP. So an INTP and an ENTP may be more quick to identify with enhancing. Whereas an SFJ might be like, oh, is that me? It might take them a while to figure out they're from that group. Because customizing that name has more of an FE bent to it, because FE is known for that shape-shifty quality of changing your values for the situation. So customizing might relate more to FJ types, and the STP counterpart might have a harder time sorting their way through to that. And
Mhm.
orchestrating sounds inherently more NTJ than it does SFP. So it might be easier for an ENTJ to know they're orchestrating than an SFP.
Mm-hmm.
And authenticating might slightly sound more like NFP, but some NFPs have some huge pushback towards the name of it because it sounds too harsh and imposing, whereas NFPs also have a go with the flow side to them too. So it might take a while for people to figure out their best fit in this because terms are laden or loaded with subcontext. So it creates those misinterpretations or those.
Yeah. I kind of want to look at it for longer.
Okay, sure.
I do believe there is a relationship between these types, like these types that share the same functions. I have to find these pictures, but they're like cartoons of these groupings, and you can see like even though the drawings they capture the individual characteristics of the types, that there's a similarity about them. Like all the STJs and NFPs kind of appear kind of earthy, and then the SFPs and NTJs kind of appear they have like a bit of a sarcastic attitude to them.
Interesting.
Yeah, I have to try to find it. It's been a while though.
So Leon's gonna create how you dress based on your personality grouping
That's too
system.
much pressure.
I'm gonna expect you to look heavily earthy, Leon.
Thank you. Did you feel like when you get too much into your filter, you kind of feel sick? I feel like I'm like too focused on rightness, and that's when I get into that state, I'm kind of like exhausted.
Yeah, when you're too much in your filter, it can feel stale. It's like I've been here too long. I want to go into the world, which is why sometimes introverts are like, I love hanging around people. And it's because they spend so long in their inner world, in their head, thinking about rightness in Leon's case, that they're like, I just have to go out and talk to people because that feels refreshing. It's new, it's novel. And I don't feel like I'm stuck in this stale rut of my own thoughts going over it again and again.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, with Linda's system, there is a lot of nuance it adds to type, and it provides you many other lenses to type yourself through. And the more data points, the better you can triangulate yourself. And so Linda Berens is a really cool person, and it gives you the opportunity to work with someone who is one of the foundations of personality type. The community is the way it is now because we stand on the shoulders of giants. And Linda Berens is she's a giant but of literal short stature, but she's very tall stature in her knowledge. So she is really cool and she has a lot to teach the world. And I'm all about supporting creators that you consume their content. So
Mm.
yeah, whether it's supporting Leon by looking at his website or Linda Berens or me. Linda Berens, she has 4 books that I have actually that I could show. One of them is I have her cognitive function book right here. And she defines it very precisely in TI fashion because she is very pedantic about wording. And so,
Thank you, Joyce. Appreciate you for being on my show.
yeah, it was really great being on. Thank you, Leon.